Okay, people. So today I am joined by, and apologies if I butchered the names, but Petr Jákl and Petr Bok, the writers and director of Medieval. Well, I've seen it referenced as a couple of different things. So we've got Medieval or Jan Žižka, right?
Jan Žižka, yes.
Jan Žižka. Okay, okay.
Yeah. So just like to correct you a little bit, my name is Petr Jákl, and Peter is Bok, Petr Bok, and
Okay.
Jan Žižka is a Czech name of the film, and it's also the name of the hero of the movie, Jan Žižka. That was the main character.
Yeah, this was, I have to say, I've never heard of him. Never heard of him before. And I love that, right? I love us when we get these stories that kind of give us these moments in time, these historical like happenings that aren't talked about all the time. There's the amount when you think of all the films that are told about the Tudors or the First, Second World War, like we get so many of those. But it's great when we get these kind of these new moments, which are very impactful, but for some reason, yeah, aren't necessarily told. Like, what was the reason that you thought, this needs to come to the big screen?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to do a movie like Braveheart or the Gladiator or The Last Samurai, and this was perfect opportunity to do something like that. So I thought like to show our real hero and somebody from who is really known in the Czech Republic, and who is one of 7 never defeated generals of all time, like Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great. I thought like it's going to be great opportunity to show it to people, to show beautiful Czech castles, Prague, Charles Bridge is there, and of course, all the nature. And I think it's, people, in the Czech Republic, they should be a little bit more proud about our history. So that was another reason why I wanted to do the movie. And Jan Žižka was fighting for what he believed in, for justice. And it's very important to remember that, especially in these days when we see what is happening around us. And also the political situation of the movie is pretty much, it's very similar to today's politics. And that was also interesting for me.
Yeah, I think that is like one of the big things. It's like, even, whenever in history we look, like there's so many elements that really reflect on the things that happen today, which is always just, because you always think like, surely we're going to learn, but no, we seem to just repeat certain things over and over again, which is kind of crazy. But
we are doomed to repeat our own history.
Yeah. So, with just the history of Jan and everything that he's done, what made this the perfect like moment to show?
Peter?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure what to answer. You start. I will follow up. I need to.
Oh, okay. I think like what we wanted to do. We wanted to. I didn't want to do his like the story of his whole life, because I thought it's something what is basically style, or I mean structure, which I didn't want to use, and we decided not to use it, and pick just the best moment, which could show everything from his life, his change, and to make his arc as big as possible. And because he was a paid mercenary who was paid by somebody to kill people, and then he's changing to someone who is fighting for high reasons, and he was, you know, he was changed by somebody. And in our story, it's a woman. Like it's in many. I believe that it's you know, just like it happens very often. And so we thought like this is the best way how to show his life and what was happening actually later on, because he became to be very famous like 18 years later. But in these days, people lost faith, and it was like poor were actually extremely poor, and rich were richer, and you know, it was really hard time for everybody. And also there was there were two popes at the same time, so it was very difficult also for religious people. And we thought like it's gonna be great to show problems from the year of 1402 and show how similar it is to these days. And that's why we picked this, you know, this year and this short time of his life. And also we wanted to show his personal story, which was very important for us, because we believe that hope in our life is very important, you know, and that was great, you know, opportunity to show it on his personal story.
Yeah, if I can add something, you know, to show how it's in the inner, in Jan Žižka process, how that person who was simply selling himself as a mercenary became a person who started to fight for the others. So how this military genius became the one we know from the history later on. So that, I think that was another very important reason for this plot, let's say.
Now, you know, you reference at the start like Braveheart and Gladiator, right? And you think about all the great films that we've had, like historical films like El Cid back in the day, you know, but then recent times, you know, you've had Rome on TV, you know, Game of Thrones, there's the Lord of the Rings films, right? Which all like really draw the viewer in, right? So when it's done well, it really is impactful, but we've seen it not go as well, right? Kingdom of Heaven, lavish, but didn't have the same kind of sentiment. So when you were putting this together, were you very conscious of trying to create something that would resonate with people? Like, what was that approach?
Emotions, from my point of view. Sorry that I started to answer. I think emotion. That was the reason for the love story in it. So that, you know, this is not a documentary about history. This is a film about real person in the real time with its context. As Peter mentioned, you know, two popes, people simply losing their faith. The pillar of the certainty simply fall apart. So to whom or to what they should believe. So it's pretty complicated situation. And if you want to dig some story, you have to have emotions. You have to have that simply love story. And as Peter said before, there's always some strong women behind us, or next to us, or even leading us.
Yeah, and by the way, also what was, you know, pretty big reason was to show medieval world as realistic as possible, and we try to make it like beautiful on one end, but also ugly on the other, and that's why it's sometimes brutal. And that's why we were trying to do the fighting scenes a little bit differently. And our goal was that people would feel like they spent some time in medieval world, and then at the end that they would Google who was actually Jan Žižka and who were Hussites and what is Hussite revolution. And maybe where is Czech Republic for some people? So that was also, you know, good reason to do the movie like this.
Oh yeah, like in the production notes, it gives like a lot of history, which is so great. Like I'm reading this stuff and I'm just like, yo, what? Never heard of this. This is fascinating. You know, I want to spend more time, you know, learning about this stuff, you know? Like, hey, I would definitely be on board for a follow-up film, you know, more of Jan's adventures, tell you the truth, you know what I mean? But what you know, something you just mentioned, you know, like the way that everything unfolds, like the effects, right? There's a part where we see like a man's hand crushed, and you see like this, he's holding his crutch. You see it visually, like the mace to the face, and just all of the effects were incredible. Like, how the hell were you able to produce at that level? You know, because it was really impressive.
That was, you know, we've got really great guys here, and they have done all the VFX on our movie. It's over 600, you know, VFX shots, so it's a lot. And basically, they also created this lion, which is a VFX lion. It's combined with a real lion in the movie, so we've got a combination of both. So they had to be very close to the real lion, because if you see a real lion and the shot after that you see the VFX lion, they have to look the same. Otherwise, you cannot use the real lion because the VFX would look even worse. So they've spent a lot of time on making this happen and making it look as it is right now. And they were great because we were discussing every moment, and there's a lot of moments which we had to create to make it work. We shot something, and mostly we shot everything on the set, but there were some things which we couldn't shoot on the set, of course. So we had to prepare it in the, you know, previs, and then we shot it as planned. And it was a lot of, you know, there was a lot of guys running with these VFX balls to get the lightning, you know, and see everything what needed to be captured for the later VFX. And yeah, it was actually a great experience. And I'm so happy that it looks like, you know, it looks actually, so it's very real. And otherwise I couldn't use it in the movie, because the main reason why I wanted all these moments like VFX was that I wanted to make it as real as possible, and it helped it actually.
Yeah, I would never have known that there was a VFX lion. You know, I was watching the film and it's like, how the hell did they get the lion to do that shit? Because that's some crazy, you know, I wouldn't want to be the actor. You know,
yeah.
Trust that this lion is tame. That boy. That's the thing. Sometimes you watch stuff and you can go, okay, it looks like they're in a car and there's a green screen on the outside, or you know, they're not really on the edge of a bit. Like sometimes you notice it, but when it's done well, it's seamless. And this was friggin' seamless, man. That's so impressive. But as a creator, how do you figure that into just like the budget and, you know, the filming, you know, knowing, okay, we're probably going to need, do you kind of in your head go, right, I feel these scenes will need VFX. So, you know, you're trying to factor in how much post-production, how much you need, you know, angles you need when you're shooting. Like, what is that like?
I mean, you usually try to prepare everything on the set or before, you know, you get into shooting. And sometimes it's very difficult because if you don't know how the VFX would look like, then you just have to imagine it. You have to explain it to all the actors. and it's very difficult. Sometimes you have some images on laptop or somewhere, and you show it to the actors, and you say, "Hey, this is behind you. This is the green screen. You have to react like this." But sometimes you just shoot it and really hope that it's gonna be the right movement. For example, if it's a fight and you have some other fighters behind them, it's very hard to coordinate it and make it exactly as you want, because then you would spend much more time. And usually, even we had pretty good budget, which was $20 million, but normally you have like 4 times, 5 times more for these kind of movies. So we had to be really efficient, and we were planning really well. And that's why also, it was because we never came back to the same location. So the movie is, looks bigger because every location is new. So you are going through the movie and you are changing locations all the time, which is not very often because it's very expensive and it's also hard for logistics. So that was difficult. And because I wrote the script, and I was like telling myself as a producer, "You fucking idiot writer, because you've done this to you, and it's gonna be difficult." But at the end of the day, as a director, I was satisfied because I had more places to show more castles, more nature, and everything what I wanted to show. So at the end of the day, it was good. It was good for the movie, but it was a bit more difficult for the production.
No, it definitely works story-wise. It definitely works story-wise. Like, how much time went into scouting those locations? Like, what was the pre-production like on this?
Yeah, we spent quite a lot of time, and we knew that we have to shoot it in the Czech Republic because we've got all the castles, all the places where it was actually happening. Some of them, just like Jan Žižka was there. So we were trying to use as many places, where he was as possible. And of course, to show everything what is beautiful, and we had to shoot it here. So we were scouting for about 2 months. And before that, I already knew some places, like some castles. But when you shoot in September, October, sometimes you have problems to get into castles because it's still a season, kind of like, so it's always difficult to plan. And then we had, great stars, which was perfect for the movie, but also for planning, it was difficult. We had Michael Caine for 4 days, then he had to go back and fly to London, and then he had to come back again, and with all the other actors, it was pretty much the same.
Okay, now I'm glad you mentioned that, because this cast, the cast really brought the energy to this film, right? You just believed in these performances, especially Sophie Loeb, because it's just like, everything's for God, and she's got this belief that everything's just, and it's just like, if that can come off so cheesy, right? But you believe that that's what the conviction the character has, like, and I'm not just saying this. I feel that this is one of the best performances I've seen of Michael Caine lately. Like, there's been films I've watched him in, the last, decade or so, and I've kind of felt, it just feels like Michael Caine doing Michael Caine, you know what I mean? But in this, I'm just like, he's Lord Borscht, you know what I mean? He's really just transformed into this character, and just everyone, like everyone gives these magnificent performances. So, like, firstly, right, because I think when you're making a film like this, obviously you probably want a lot of Czech stars to be involved, but how do you balance using homegrown talent and then thinking to yourself, well, we want some big world stars to try and bring people in, and that kind of like, how do you balance all of that and, you know, just get these people involved?
Yeah, we always wanted to have a lot of known actors, because we knew that it's gonna help to promote the movie and sell the movie worldwide. And it actually, because of that, because we got Michael Caine, Til Schweiger, which is a huge German star, Matthew Good, and also, you know, we had a lot of Danish guys. We had the main villain is Roland Muller, Danish actor, who is very cool, charismatic guy, who is you know, very tough also. And then we had other Germans. We had a Swedish guy. Actually, it was one of the mercenaries who is the strongest man in the world. He was actually 10 years ago. He was really strongest man in the world. And then we had you know, many others from Europe. But we always wanted to have some Czech guys, Czech actors in the movie. So we had Karel Roden, who is pretty famous. He has, you know, he plays bad boys in American movies. Plus, we had some other actors, Czech actors, who I wanted to have there, because it's a Czech movie, and I always wanted to have Czech actors. But when we were talking and when we were discussing the leading part or some big supporting roles, we thought like it's gonna be a better performance if it's a native American or British, somebody native English-speaking actor. So we were looking for actors which are actually British or Americans. We have also British William Moseley, he's also a great guy. All these guys are my friends, and I love them all. Sometimes the shooting was easier with some of them, harder with the others, but it was joy. And Michael Caine is so humble, and it was so great to direct him that I offered him another movie, and we did together. I produced another movie with him called Bestsellers. So, and he's also you know, leading role in a video game for Medieval, which will be actually we are gonna be using pieces of the movie, and Michael Caine will have his 3D character in it, and it's unbelievable. So Michael really helped us a lot, and especially me.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Like, how much of like this story did like the cast know coming in?
Basically, nobody knew who Jan Žižka was, so they all had to look online, you know, who is actually Jan Žižka, and yeah, so it was you know, interesting for me to explain everybody who he really was, how we feel about him, and that it's also controversial story in these days. So some people feel that he is the real hero. Some people feel that he was killing too many people. So, and sometimes, you know, some people think that he was too like religious fanatic later on, and there's a lot of point of views on his life and what he did. But because we chose his early life, we didn't have to actually confront us and the story with this, because it was later on. But we put all these elements, you know, the spicy of all this into this story, and we tried to show like what were the problems. And so that this is like, you know, also another reason why we chose his early days, you know, early years of his life.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, right? If we look at like there's so many historical figures, there's gonna be some, you know what I mean, some moments which are questionable now because times change, opinions change. Like there's so much that, you know, we've evolved into, but back then, like it was kind of, you know, a reasonable thing to do some of the things that they did. So it's like, yeah, it's always kind of interesting seeing these things and, you know, how times were and everything like that. I mean, how much artistic license is in the film compared to the actual story?
Well, to be honest, I think it's fiction. It's fiction. So, but the actual story is based on the actual story. So you have to imagine that it was beginning of the 15th century, and we simply do not know what was really happening with actual days and months and years with these people, because Jan Žižka back then wasn't that famous as a noble-like person. So you can't. There are no written evidence about his life very much, but there are kind of, you know, slight puzzles or pieces of puzzles which can lead you to what was probably or most probably happening back then. So that we positively know he was an outlaw, and he was fighting the most powerful nobleman in the southern Bohemia. That's the character of Rosenberg. And he was later on, early on, he was even caught and he was sentenced to death. And immediately a pardon from a royal, from the king himself came, pardoning just him. All the other bunch of the outlaws were hanged. He was released. So he had really strange connections to the royal court, and there are other historical facts from that time. We really stick to it. I mean, family, like he had that brother. He definitely, as I mentioned, had connection to the royal court. And one very important thing, that it happened in the year 1402, which was the second attempt or successful attempt to kidnap the King Wenceslav IV, and he was kidnapped by his own brother. So it's again actual real. The brother came, the Sigismund came to Bohemia with a whole army, plundering the Bohemia, because he was simply gathering money he thought they belonged to him, and so on. So there are lots of things which are really based on history, but combined together is a fiction.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we used all the politics, whatever was possible, whatever we knew and found out about Jan Žižka, it's used, but we don't know, too much about him. But his personal, I would say, his personal story was, film fiction, but it was still based on, facts we knew about his wife, and other elements, of his family when he grew up. All that is right. So it's just like, put into the real places and stories around him. But the line of his story in the movie was changed as we needed for the movie to make sense for us, and also to have the emotion which we wanted to have, and that, like, just to show how people felt, why they were fighting, and all that is what we think it was happening.
Yeah, one more thing, that the struggle of influence in the coronation of the Holy Roman Emperor, that's definitely historical as well, and even the interventions of French royal court is historical fact as well. And that's the story with the French king and his brother. At that time, the French king was really mentally ill. He was insane. So the actual leader was his brother. So that's all something you can find out. It really fits the history. Yeah. So that's as Peter said.
Okay. No, that's it's interesting. It's a really interesting time period that I do feel that your film is going to get a lot of people looking into.
I hope so.
Which is great. Like for you, what was the most difficult part of this? Because you mentioned the VFX shots. You've got those underwater shots, which were just like, you think it might be difficult just shooting someone swimming through a tunnel, but then you've got the fight scenes underwater, especially at the beginning, which really do get you pumped up. Like that is a great way to kind of start off the film with just this whole kind of ambush and everything. But what was like, the hardest kind of moments to kind of shoot and the production wise here?
Yeah, by the way, I think actually the underwater shooting is the most difficult part, and it was really difficult because we were shooting in the beginning, and then we were shooting the last 3 days of the shooting, which was in December. We did that in a pool, but in the beginning we did it in a real lake in September. So it was extremely difficult because it takes like 3 times longer than normal shooting. And sometimes actors are cold, or the water is too hot, or they cannot dive for so long. They cannot do this. They cannot see. It's too murky water, or just too clean. And it was like always something. And it's also hard to direct people underwater. So they could hear, we had this equipment, they could hear what I was saying, but they couldn't answer back, so they just like had to just listen. And but the most difficult moment was the first week of the shooting, when we actually shot the battle, which is in the beginning. And it was like, it was the worst place we could choose, because it was like basically a quarry close to Prague, and there was just one way road. So you would always have to wait like an hour for an actor to get there, and then the sun was there just for 6 hours instead of 12 hours, and it was crazy. And we had immediately Michael Caine, Ben Foster, many fighters fighting, and most of the directors would tell you, and they told me, like, shoot something what you don't need to use in the movie in the first days, because you're probably not gonna end up using it. But I knew that I had to shoot this because of Michael Caine's availability, also the weather, the location and everything. So we were, it was really, really difficult time, but we made it. And at the end, I actually super enjoyed the editing it, with and we had a great editor. We had Steve Rosenblum, who is an editor of Braveheart or The Last Samurai and many others. And he helped me so much with the structure and, just like creating beautiful moments. And then he was stuck in US because of the pandemic. And so he told me, and he agreed, his friend Dirk Westerveld, who is an editor of Logan or Le Mans 66, and he did great job on action scenes and other little moments which we were going through. So I super enjoyed the process in editing, which I love the most from the whole process, actually.
Interesting. Like, what did it feel like to, once it was finished and you saw it on the big screen? How did that feel?
Yeah, it's always difficult, when you see something what you've been planning for so long and what you see in your editing room. I usually really, I don't like the first cut. I usually like the second cut a little bit better, but then probably the next cut is worse, or vice versa. It depends. So always very like. I'm thinking about what is gonna be there, not what is there right now, because I know I can fix this performance, I can fix that. But it's usually the time when you're still trying to find the best version of it, like what is something what is going to work the best, because there are always ways how to do the movie. It could be faster, longer, slower. It could be more brutal or funnier, and you have to choose. And so it was written somehow, but actually these editors they are trying to not cut it as it was written, but as it was shot. So, and it's different material than a script. I got a script like a director, and they got the footage from me as a director. So it was transferred to something else. So Steve, especially Steve, told me that for him it's better just to watch what was shot. Don't read the script first, or read the script in the beginning, but then don't go and read again the scenes, but to see how it was shot and cut it from that and see what is the potential of the scene. And I think it's clever, and I appreciate it. And it was always good to watch a new scene he did or they did.
Yeah, no, what you've done here is pretty great, right? Because when you consider, right, I think I saw that the new Lord of the Rings TV series was roughly 100 million an episode, and you say you did this for around 20. I'm just like, this looks like it's on that same scale. You know what I mean? This looks so impressive. This story, it was great. The performances are great. This is such a really well done piece of work. So I congratulate you both on what you've done here. And I just feel that, yeah, this is gonna invoke for people those emotions they got when watching Gladiator, when watching Lord of the Rings, Braveheart, those films. I think it's gonna do the same kind of thing. So hey, I think you've got something really impressive on your hands here, gentlemen.
Thanks a lot. It's great to hear things like this, and we are really happy that we were able to finish it and put the money together, then write the script and shoot it as we wanted, and we were waiting 2 years because of the pandemic. So it's been 4 years in post. Everything was difficult about this movie. But at the end, I think we are happy that the movie went out right now, not before the pandemic, because right now it's more relevant with all the war and all these things happening. So yeah, and I think it's what is good, if you feel at the end of the movie that there is a hope. So to feel the hope, it's always good, and if it's there, we are happy.
Okay, well, I know that you've got to run off and do some more press, but before you go, let the people know how they can follow you and keep track of everything you're doing and this movie itself.
Yeah, I think just like you can follow us on Instagram, which is my profile. I don't think Peter has profile. Maybe he has.
No, no.
So and yeah, all about movie. I think it's somewhere. Actually, I don't know the distribution sites, but yeah, it's gonna be soon in theaters. I mean, it's been in the Czech theaters already 5 weeks, and we are #1 5 weeks, which is pretty great. Yeah.
Outstanding. Yeah, I feel that will be repeated around the world, my friend. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that. And yeah, all the success for you, man. And hey, when you've got your next project, please come back. I've enjoyed the conversation, so I'd love to do it again.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.